Hello, Indian Ridge players. Nate LeBlanc here, your head golf professional. Thanks for attending golf school the last 2 days this week. We're excited to share with you in our video a recap of that, especially here in putting. As we talked about in putting, we covered three fundamentals. We covered grip, connection, and posture and stance. First, I want to talk about grip. With our grip, again, in the full swing, as Jamie was mentioning, we're not producing a leverage swing, gripping the club in our fingers to begin with in the putting swing. We want to grip the club appropriately in the lifeline of our hand down the center of our palm to begin with. What that allows us to do is allows us to control and stabilize the putter so the putter face does not twist or open and close as you're performing your putting stroke. Again, we're starting with the lifelines in our hand. As you're looking at it from the side, your right hand would come in and mirror the same exact side on the right side of the grip, finding, again, the lifelines of your hands. The next part of this is connection. As we talk about connection, it's a very important subject within our full swing, our chipping and pitching, but also in the foundation of putting. As we look at this connection, what we want to establish is often at the club level with players. We often see a putting stance and posture where our arms are very straight, and as we go down to the ball, we're in this position, very rounded back. And as I mentioned in the putting school, we lose the most amount of control setting up in this fashion with our wrists and our forearms. You can see as I'm performing this putting stroke, the amount of variability that occurs with the face rotation as well as distance control. We want to be able to control our speed appropriately with this connection. So the connection that we want to establish is with our arm structure to our body. So as you follow along with me, we want the elbows in front of our rib cage, setting up that connection. And our main engine, again, in the putting stroke is our upper body propelling the stroke. So from down the line, as I build my lifeline, the heartbeat of my putting swing, as Ben Hogan once termed, we're building connection with our arms in front of our rib cage, and that's the connection that we're establishing. The next part of this is stance and posture. As I mentioned in the golf school, we're going to work our way from the ground up. I want you to think of your feet as tree roots. Tree roots are great foundations for trees. Let's be a great foundation within our putting setup. So again, your ankles, I want those located underneath your hips. That's going to help create a nice wide, stable base and a platform upon for us to swing. The next part of this is located with our waist and our hips. So I would like for you to take your club, your putter, place it up against your hips with some soft knee bend. What you're going to feel is I want you to push into your waistline, bending from the hips. Bending from the hips there. Again, this is the shortest club in our bag. So we have to ensure we have the most amount of bend forward relative to the golf ball. So as we're setting up, we're going over those foundational aspects of connection, our lifeline in our grip, and bending from our waist to the ball. So comfortably, once you are set, then we can go ahead and perform that stroke. As we're talking about our posture, another key aspect that we want to take a look at is our eye alignment relative to the golf ball, whether we are too far forward and our eyes are over well outside the golf ball, or if we're too far away. Again, that has a great impact on distance control because that allows you to control where you're hitting the golf ball in the center of the club face. So as we are building our connection, our grip, the lifeline, connection, and then our posture, bending from our waist, we want to see our eyes right on top of the golf line, our target line there in the golf ball. You don't need a fancy mirror to practice this, but instead you can always have an extra coin or a ball in your pocket. And as you're settling into your practice time here or before a round of golf, as you settle into that ball, go ahead and just grab that extra coin or ball from your pocket, and then you can check where that golf ball is dropping relative to the ball line. That'll be a very good key checkpoint to ensure consistent contact in the center of the club face. Fabulous. So let's apply this. Let's talk about an application of these 3 foundational aspects within our putting game. And you can see I have some golf balls around this hole. The variability that we want to practice is 3-foot putts particular. We want to make sure that we are covering the 3 to 4 foot range as we warm up before a round of golf. And then, as I mentioned, talking about fringe to fringe putting for distance control and speed. So as I place these golf balls around here, you would just calmly and set up your stance, your connection and lifeline as you begin this drill. So I'm working around the circle here, each and every time, getting that nice foundational habit established as we're performing these strokes. Four for 4 on my good days. I'd take that 7 days a week. But again, we're just looking for nice practice, efficient and effective practice time. So work on those shorter lengths. Try the around the world. All right, the last drill I want you to work on is our distance control. Absolutely paramount within our putting. Again, as we see at the club level and even guilty in my own game, most players underread putts and adjust with speed. So we want to appropriately make sure that our speed has a great control on the greens, and that will eliminate 3 putts, 4 putts, and make sure we're 2 putting every time. So I've placed 4 balls here in sequential order with a ladder system, and all I'm focusing on is leaving my ball onto the fringe cut there on the putting green. I encourage you to try this both uphill and down the hill on our putting greens, and that will be a great impact establishing your speed control during your practice, but also before a round of golf. As I'll demonstrate here, I'm starting with the first ball, just focusing on, again, my lifeline, my grip, connection, and posture, and ensuring I can roll the ball towards that fringe cut line. Again, as you're doing this, you'll gain a great amount of feedback with your speed control, working this ladder here, putting from fringe to fringe. So great feedback there for me as a player. A little bit short. I felt I didn't give enough speed in the backswing length to the forward stroke length. So on this next ball, I want to ensure I give enough acceleration through the putt to get that ball to finish on the fringe line. Great feedback, constructive for me as a player, and I was able to accomplish that goal with my last ball. Again, thanks for attending golf school. We look forward to it every season. Game improvement equals game enjoyment, and we'll see you on the golf course.
Okay, so we heard from Nate regarding putting, and so we want to talk about just a couple of things. So we want to reiterate from our station, through our stations as we move through those in the 2 days in the short game area. So we want to talk about grip, we're going to confirm setup, and then we'll talk a little bit about the movement. So some of the similarities that you're going to see carry across from the putting to the chipping to the pitching and then into full swing. So those things, let's start with grip. So grip is going to be now, because we're getting closer into a full swing situation. So we want that club to be a little more in the fingers here. You know, Nate mentioned the lifeline and how that club works up with having leverage this way. Now we're going to get a little more into the fingers because we're going to go from a chip to pitch and then on to full swing. So for grip, again, in the fingers, and then we want that thumb down the front of the shaft there into the little groove on the palm. So you're going to see that rest comfortably in there. Next, then we move into setup. So when we set up, now we have a little bit of freedom here. This particular motion isn't about leverage and speed, as we talked about in the groups, right? So we can many of you are comfortable a little bit closer to it. I mean, this is a shorter swing, again, not about speed, but this shot tends to create a bit of anxiety. So we want to keep this movement small, right? So I'm going to get a little bit closer to us. That shaft's not going to be, that's vertical. We're not going to be completely vertical, but we don't want to be in this position here. We don't want too much angle because that gets the club working a little bit outside. So in setup, we want it to be just a little bit closer to us. And if you notice, if I'm set up face on, you'll see that we want the hands in a more neutral position. The only thing that would change where the ball is relative to the hands is if we move that ball back. You'll notice my hands are still in the center, but they're forward of the golf ball relative to that position where the ball sits. So in terms of the movement, all we're looking to do is, this is just shoulders. So similar to what you heard Nate mention with putting, and I think Jamie will mention too, connection is really big. Elbows in the rib cage, same thing. That allows the bigger muscles to move the golf club instead of worrying about arms and hands that relies much more on timing. So back to, we want to be close to this golf ball. Shaft's not completely vertical, but certainly closer than we would be in our full swing. So at this point, we want to pick that spot. The ball's going to get on the ground a little bit quicker because it's a pitching motion. We want that ball to get on the ground and run. So again, a little closer to it, shaft's closer to vertical. I got my elbows in here to allow for connection. Now we just want the shoulders to control the motion, right? You can see very small. We don't want to get in this situation where the hands are getting, as many of you may recall in the stations when we were working individually, we don't want the hands to really get too far above the waistline. We want those hands to stay small, use the shoulders, and drive down through that golf ball. And then when we finish, you'll notice that club's just going to work on its arc, okay? What we saw a few times in our stations where that club would work back to here, and then we were trying to push that ball and the club ends up a little bit outside of our path. So we want this club to work freely. And back to grip for a moment, to talk about grip pressure is, you know, right now if I were to have Nate walk up here, Nate would be able to come right up here and pull this golf club out of my hand. I'm about a 3 out of 10. So want to be really comfortable, short little swing, and again, hands in the middle through that golf ball. You see how low that club finishes. So keep those fundamentals in mind as you're out here practicing. Keep this movement small, keep it controlled with the larger muscles, and that connection is probably the thing that several of you, if you're working with Nate and Jamie and I and all of our staff, we talk a lot about connection because that's how we want to move the golf club. Okay, so you saw in chipping, right? So we went through grip, setup, and motion of the chipping. And now we've moved back about 30, 35 yards from where we were. So what changes? Well, the simple answer is not very much, right? So still want the grip in the fingers. So we're going to go through grip, setup, and movement. We're going to do the same situation, just move it back. How much difference is there between these two movements, right? So the grip, there it is, nothing changes. Still in the fingers, still want that thumb down the shaft with finger in that groove in the palm, right? So we worked a lot on that, and building these fundamentals early is going to be critical for your long-time success. So solid grip. Now we get into setup. How much changes between the chipping and the pitching? Well, like we said, not very much, right? So I still want those elbows in here toward the rib cage. That connection is going to be so crucial for us to allow this club to work on path. We always say path is the most critical piece of the golf swing. So this connection will allow us in the simplest way to move that golf club into that position. So movement, how much more happens from a chip 5 yards off the green to now we're 40 yards back from the flag? What does that call for? So really all that calls for is our chipping motion is here, hands are low, club's working around, hands are under the waist, back and through. Not a very big motion. So we only need to hit this about 25 yards further in total, maybe 40 yards further. So now you're going to see just a little bit more rotation. You're going to see that club starts to get a little more vertical, almost like an L, if you will, right? And so you notice what doesn't change, however, is the connection to the body. So I'm still going to be moving this golf club with rotation. So set up and walk through that. So grips in the fingers, put my hand on top, but feel that little groove in my right palm just slide right over top, or the opposite for the left-handed player. So now I'm going to, and again, this isn't really about leverage and speed. So I'm going to come in. If I want to be a little closer on this shot, we can still do that, but we don't want to crowd ourselves because we are going to be moving with a little bit more of a clip than we were with the chip. So again, hands are going to be neutral, by the way. Same principle as the chipping. My hands are going to be off the center. We don't want too much forward press. We see a little bit of this, and now we get that club working around us. So we want the hands in the center, and again, it's all rotational. So the setup, I basically have my spot picked out where I'd like this ball to go. Grips in the fingers, really comfortable. Arms are just hanging, right? Elbows are in the rib cage. I can feel that little bit of pressure, maybe right around the love handles. So again, I'm going to just move this club. Now we're going to go back just a little bit further. And it's just rotation, right? So I pulled that a little bit, so I got back there a little bit. We tend to get a little bit anticipation. That's one point that I made with many of you in this, and I'm glad that that worked out that way. So we get back here, and all of a sudden there's this anticipation of impact. So we want to be free in our movement. So when we're out here practicing, let's let the ball get in the way. So movements, just shoulder to shoulder, just rotational, right? Keep it simple. And let's not try to anticipate the impact. Ball almost gets in the way. And to some of you, we said contact may surprise you a little bit, and that's okay. So having said that, so we didn't, the first one's a little bit of a miss hit. So again, let's just focus on the fundamentals and just driving towards our target, towards our golf ball. So you'll see that ball is going to be, we're going to get a little more trajectory on this ball, and that ball is going to check and release just a little bit. And we can only control that with ball position, but I would say from a fundamental standpoint, let's just start with ball in the center, hands in the center, everything in a neutral passive position. And then let's just rotate as we said, stay connected, shoulder to shoulder. Those, the only difference is on a chip, that club's going to be here a little bit below the waist. Those hands are just going to get a little bit higher, same position. But most important, really good cadence. Let's not try to anticipate impact. Let's focus on the movement. Let that feedback tell us what we need to do. Okay, so again, we really enjoyed these last 2 days with you. So hopefully if you have questions, you come see us. We'd love to help any way we can. But remember, game improvement equals game enjoyment.
Hi, Indian Ridge golfers. I'm going to do a quick recap of the full swing station fundamentals from the golf school. I hope you'll find this useful, fun, and a good reminder to come back to when you're out playing your own game. One of the big things that we talked about was having a pre-shot routine or a system that you can use not only in your practice, but also that you take to the golf course. I shared with you the acronym GAPS, G-A-P-S, grip, aim, posture, stance. Hopefully you can borrow at least all or some or parts of it that would be useful for you in your game. I'm going to touch briefly on all of those 4 things, and we'll put it all together at the end. So the first one of those was grip. And as a reminder, we talked about the importance of our 2 grips in golf, a lever grip and a non-lever grip. So our non-lever grip is represented by this red strip in my glove, and we use that for putting when we don't need to hinge our wrists. Almost all the other shots that you're going to hit in golf, we need some leverage, and we need our lever grip to help us provide that. So that's represented by this blue strip in my glove. When I hold the club, I want to allow the club to fall into that blue strip right through the roots of my fingers. I encouraged you to start in your lead hand with your arm and the club all lined up with each other, and just in your natural, comfortable arm hang at your side. Allow the club to fall into the roots of your fingers, into that blue strip. Then hinge your wrist and bring your arm right over to the midline of your body. If you've done this correctly, when the butt end of the club is pointed at your midline, the bottom edge of the club should be straight up and down, and that's how you'll check that you have a nice square face. When we put our trail hand on the club, we want to put it on with the intent of making a sideways blow. So we want our trail elbow bent. We want to place the lifeline of our trail hand around the thumb of our lead hand. Looks like this. You'll notice also when you do this that your palm and that club face match up really well with each other. So as you put that trail hand on the club and allow your fingers to fold around the grip the rest of the way, this is the grip we get. And it doesn't matter if you are doing an interlocking or an overlapping or a 10-finger grip. This is applicable all the way across the board. When you've done this well, you will be able to hinge your wrists up and down, and the face will stay square. You'll also be able to swing around your body and feel the power, feel your wrists hinge a little bit, and that the face comes back, again, always to square. So those are a couple of key points with our grip. Now, I'm going to cover aim and alignment. When we're aiming in golf, it's important that we know where the club face is pointed. We have a target line, which is an imaginary line from our ball to our target. It's important when you put the club down that the bottom edge of the club is perpendicular to that target line. When I set my body up, I'm going to align my body to that target line. One of the big mistakes that we see when we're driving around on the golf course watching you is we see you point your body lines, like your shoulders, hips, and feet, at the target. And you'll notice when I do that, I actually am going to wind up about 30 yards to the right of where I intend to hit the ball. So again, it's important that we aim the club face at the target, and our body will wind up being aligned roughly parallel, and in my case to the left, since I'm a right-handed golfer, to the target line. Again, don't point your body lines at the target. Okay, that's grip and aim. Let's talk briefly about posture. We talked in the school about the importance of a forward bend or a hip hinge, using your pelvis and hips to bend forward this way to hit the golf ball. What we're not looking for is crumpling up from the upper back in this fashion. We want to keep our head and neck very neutral to our spine and simply forward bend from the hips. Once you've done that, unlock your knees and allow your hands and arms to hang under your shoulders, and you should be in great posture. One of the biggest killers of good posture is that phrase I know we've all heard, keep your head down. So watch what happens if I take my good posture and then add put your head down. You'll see my good posture just left me. And as we talked about in the school, when you keep your head and shoulders more neutral and your neck and spine in a more neutral position, you really open up the possibility of making a beautiful shoulder turn. So no more keep your head down. All right, the last part of our acronym S, take your stance so that you're balanced. When we set up to hit the ball, I want you to be in good balance across your feet, heel and toe. So we don't want you sitting on your heels. We don't want you up on your toes. We don't want you leaning way right, and we don't want you leaning way left. Find a good balanced stance so that you're prepared to make an athletic swing. Now, we also talked about the fact that we should have a process for this that goes quickly and succinctly and with purpose, so that you don't take forever to hit your golf shots. We want to encourage good, quick pace of play. So here's what it looks like when we put it all together. Remember, when you're out on the course, practice your routine and do it succinctly, do it effectively and efficiently. You'll be organized to hit your shots, you will hit better shots, and you will do it in a great pace of play. Look forward to seeing you on the golf course. Thanks again for attending the school.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to say thank you for participating in our golf schools. This has gained tremendous traction over the years. So, we want to thank you for the support. We've had a lot of fun doing this. But I think one of the interesting things this year that we noticed were several beginners. I think we had maybe close to 10 of our students this year were beginners. So we think that that's great. Look, you put yourself out there. We are addressing the fundamentals. We're starting this game and we're starting this journey with you, and we're excited to be doing that. But just to understand how important it is to start out with the fundamentals. And then on the flip side, we also had several of our seasoned golfers. It was interesting to see the mix of players. And I think the message to our seasoned golfers is let's continue to address those fundamentals year over year and make sure that we're continuing our progress toward our goals. So thank you again for doing that.
We had a a great time being with you. We hope these videos are a great review. Again, whether you're a brand new golfer or a seasoned golfer, come back to them. They're here for your reference. We are here to help you with your game when you're ready to follow up with us, either individually with instruction or in one of the many clinics that we've got scheduled throughout the season.
Again, thanks for attending. We look forward to a fantastic year, and we look forward to seeing you in the shop here soon, working on your games. And remember, game improvement equals game enjoyment.